Uh, Getting ready to start here, guys. Setting up a few things. Fully aware that I can be heard right now. Go ahead and start the intro. Hey, this is David for Big Bits. I just want to do a quick stream while I have some time here. I was going to do some development on the scripting tutorial stuff. I figured I'd do some of this live. That way, in case anyone's watching actually wants to comment or ask a question, you're certainly free to do that. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat, but there's a few things that I wanted to do. I've already started working on this 7th tutorial, and I'll go into a lot more detail later, but essentially it's just allowing us to select different resolutions for our moving averages that we're working with here. So really all I'm going to work on is just adding a few more moving average types to this indicator and just kind of test those out right now. So start with a volume weighted moving average. So the price today has actually been pretty good. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it spiked up quite a bit earlier today. And kind of looks like it's meeting a little bit of resistance, but I mean, there was an awful lot of volume in a single minute candle here. The price jumped up quite a bit, which is a good sign. Save this real quick, because that should complete the volume weighted moving average. Look how I got this coded. It's so simple to add. Just another moving average here. So let's switch out to the weekly. Now, I mentioned this in the live stream last night, but it looks like it found a little bit of support there on the 100-week moving average. Zoom in even more and more here. Yeah, that's the 100-week moving average. Go back to the 1-minute chart. I can actually change the red one to where it's showing you the 100-week. Yeah, so the red line was the 100-week. And you'll see it's been above that. It went below it, but it wicked and closed above every single time. Right. That also gives you kind of an idea what we're working here with on the indicator. We're doing the multiple resolutions. Excellent. All right, let's add another moving average here. Smooth average, SMA. Let's see. Let's go ahead and add our option in here. remember in our logical branches, whatever value is last here, that's what's going to be spit back out of the function. So it's completely fine. We don't have to set it equal to anything. It'll automatically take care of that for us because of how we've coded the rest of the indicator. Interesting. A lot of these indicators that I'm looking at that have these other moving averages have horrible documentation, and the code is not very friendly to look at. People who've done this are not typically programmers, which I would expect. It's really weird getting some conflicting calculations on this one. I don't know why. Does a weighted moving average, and then it okay, I see what it's doing here. It's just doing a weighted moving average, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Okay, probably not even gonna add that one. I don't like that. Let's do the was thinking about doing LSMA or ALMA, but I don't want to have to add in new puts. I really don't want to have to add in new inputs, so we'll just take that one out for now. Just leave it how it was, but just add in that volume weighted moving average. Alright, this is all pretty simple stuff. It looks like it might be getting ready to break out on price right now, so that's good. Okay. I'll just save this for now. I don't really care to add these other ones in this particular script, and I'm not entirely sure this script is ready to add those to it anyway. But it's really good having all of these different selections available for you. Yeah, I'm just seeing that message, Magnus. We're going to get to where we can do the strats. So if you follow along in the scripting tutorial series I'm doing, we'll get to where we can eventually do our own strategies and stuff. I'm actually kind of learning some TradingView stuff as we go along here. I've done TradingView coding before, mostly just really simple indicators, but I wanted to make some more advanced stuff now because I've developed my own trading bots before, and really a lot of the stuff I see on TradingView is pretty simple, and you can do a lot with it. And TradingView is actually missing a whole lot of stuff in its PineScript language that could help it. I've tried a few things outside of the tutorials here, and it's missing a few things that I think would be really beneficial, and I'll probably touch on those in a video specifically for it. Let's actually just make a new one. What I want to do is actually just make a copy of this one. Save as. There we go. Well, of course, what I want to do is I want to have this series go from being just this simple moving average you've seen in the first video to something very, very complicated with a strategy with several indicators that very flexible, like the one we're looking at now, where we can change a bunch of settings and stuff. Okay, so this is an indicator that I have made before. Let's see, I didn't load the source for that one. RSI smoothed. We're gonna have to go in and change this one. Let's take out everything except for the period. Actually, let's leave everything for MA1, and we can always change it for MA2 if we need to. We don't know. I'll leave the forecast stuff just in case there's a need for us to forecast in RSI. I'll leave the MA function in case we need to do an MA resolution. Leave that. MA1. Gonna get rid of that stuff for now. Definitely don't need that. That was just for testing. These are crossovers. Don't really care to plot the crossovers on an RSI. Draw the information on the chart. Yeah, it's just plotting it. That was just setting the value. Okay. This is for the bias. Doing that. Let's just get rid of all that. I don't want this code to actually execute. Wow. Okay, home. So it's not going to do any bias or forecasting now, which is good. Okay. I don't want this to be overlaid on top of the chart, so we'll turn that off. Let's change this to RSI smoothed. And change this to RSI smooth as well. So what I'm really wanting to do here is I'm wanting to create just a regular RSI chart. And with the RSI, I want to also create a second line, which is a smoothing line for it. And you can actually see this in other indicators. Oh, well, that's no good. Well, essentially the stochastic RSI and the MACD both have smoothed lines. The blue line is your MACD line here, but your orange line is a smoothed line. But they call it the signal on the MACD, and it's just the blue line being smoothed out. And what I want to do is I want to do that with our RSI, because a lot of times with RSI, when you get a bool divergence, it's easy to see on the chart, but it's hard to predict. Now, if you have a smoothed RSI, like let's say for example here, you went oversold here, you know, your smoothed RSI could still be to where it isn't oversold. But if the price continues to stay low and it goes oversold again, your smooth RSI would continue to drop because it has been it has its own moving average. And when your smooth RSI starts to turn up, then it can actually kind of help indicate extended periods of selling so that you can find a good spot to turn around. Now, of course, everything is not guaranteed, but that's just what we have here. Let's actually, I want to change my loadout, or my load on my chart here. Go to something new. Save that. Rename this live stream development. Let's open our indicator that we are working on now, our RSI smooth. It's not really doing anything. So, well, what it is doing is it's plotting the price or a moving average here, but it's not plotted on the chart because we have the overlay turned off. All right, thank Madness. I missed your other messages, but yeah, keep in touch. Follow me on social media, and you can message me whenever, man. All right, so gonna continue here, working with the RSI. I need to make sure I get this calculation. I'm just gonna borrow this one from another script. Okay, there's a built-in function for RSI, even better. So now, let's actually make RSI. We'll make this an oscillator function. OSC type, which is going to be RSI for this one. And this is great because we're creating code we can reuse again when we make functions. OSC source, OSC period. And this is going to be for oscillators specifically. Give me just a moment here. Got a message I need to follow up on. Alright, so let's tab in if OSC type is equal to RSI. And tab in again, we're going to spit out our value, which is going to be an RSI based on the source and the period. Pretty simple. Actually, very, very simple. Now that we have that, let's change what we're plotting here. And now we're actually going to take the resolution of the MA1. That's still fine. But we're actually going to do an oscillator here. MA1 type, source, and period. That should take care of it by just switching the function to use the oscillator function. We're going to use the RSI. That should do it. So now it should print the RSI. But the RSI value, oh man, the default value is way off here. Let's change that. We don't need this stuff either. I forgot to uncomment this out, or to comment that out. Type source resolution visible. Yeah, that's all fine. It's good. I need to set this to a default of 14, I believe, is the RSI. Cannot compile. Forecast bias magnitude. Okay, so we also need to comment out this function for now because one of the variables it was using was defined at a higher level, which is not being used anymore. So let's save this, see if it'll actually compile now. I believe it should. Okay. Oh boy. Am I even plotting here? Yeah. So something's off. So we're using yeah, the MA1 type defaults to SMA. So of course it's not going to work. There is no condition for it. So let's actually change this since we're not using moving averages. Let's just change this to where the only option is RSI, and we're going to set the default value to RSI, and hopefully that should take care of the issue that we're having. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's actually compare this to the actual RSI that's built in here. Look at that. The values in the green and the orange here should stay exactly the same. And you'll notice they are. Throughout time, they are always the same. And that means RSI calculation is correct. Now, we also want to do a smoothed version of this. So we'll want a second value here. And I should have not deleted all of those wonderful options for my moving averages. And this will be we'll start with a fairly quick smoothing. We'll just have it in half. I need to change all these to 2s. Excellent, that's completely fine. Now when we set our second MA, the first one is the RSI. We'll have to come back and rename these things later. But our second one is actually going to be an MA again. And we're going to have to pass in the appropriate types and resolutions. And then we'll also have, of course, have to plot it as well. Make sure I don't forget anything. When you're copying and pasting code like this, it's very important to make sure you catch everything, because unless there's a good search and find tool built in, then it's sometimes pretty hard to find your mistakes when you forget to make a certain change when you copy and paste code like that. Let's see. Let me save this. All right, now let's open up our other one so we can copy those options from it. Go back up to our options, switch to the defaults here, copy that. Okay, I don't want to even see this. Let's go to our RSI smoothed, go back to our source here, and plug in our options for our moving averages. All right, great. Now we've got all of our different moving averages that we can use. The default is going to be a simple moving average. The smoothing period is going to be 7, but our source, that actually needs to be MA1. So we might have to play around with the code quite a bit to get this to work, because the sources it's expecting are based on the built-in list of sources. So you might have to play around to get the system to work correctly. Okay, give me just a moment. Because I really want to continue using the moving average function. If the source is based on that. Just want to make sure that we can do this. Well, the built-ins just return a value, so let's just try to toss in MA1 as the source here. See how that works out. I think that worked. Okay. Yeah, the source list is just like a predefined enumeration from the land of C sharp where I come from. But there was also the chance that those were the only options that the built-in moving average functions expected. But since it was more like an enumeration, then we were able to pass in any sort of decimal value here. So you can see now when this line gets smoothed out that you can definitely see where these kind of divergences build up, and you don't even have to actually plot. You don't have to draw the lines on the chart. You can actually see where these have slowed down. Now let's actually change this. It's just our settings here. Let's change from simple moving average to a whole moving average. Go. You can see that follows really closely, so that one's probably not great. Let's slow down our RSI to 21. And let's change this back to a simple moving average. Excellent. Okay. So we still need to add some lines for our oversold and overbought areas. And we actually need to change the color here of the lines. Let's go ahead and do that now because that's really bothering me. Let's change this line widths to 1. Excellent. That's much nicer. Okay, very good. This is a 1-minute chart, so this one probably doesn't show you the way I like to look at these RSI smoothed values because things usually happen a lot slower on 1-day candles. Let's take a look, and we'll have to kind of look down here as well. You can see if there's a divergence built up here, it doesn't really matter because we're looking at the smooth line. And you can see when the RSI crossed back over above this one, there was a good chance for it to pop back up, and it did. RSI smooth value stays down there. Now, there's a good chance we want to offset this, and I actually want to kind of find a way to weight these a little bit better because I think the past values be weighted a little bit better with the current values, because what I want is I want this dip to show up right in through here. That way when it's leaving the oversold conditions, it'll show up as the line coming back up. So we can just play around with different moving averages to try that out. Let's try a weighted moving average. That definitely doesn't do it. We could also try slowing it down quite a bit on the simple moving average. Now what I'm trying to create is the RSI showing up as oversold on our smooth line and coming back up. Sometimes when you're working on building these indicators, you have to find out, you have to test these different moving averages, you have to test these different sources. And I need to get rid of this input here because we're actually using the MA1 for the source. Let's actually, and you can also play around with that here on that since that's for the RSI. The RSI is so quick. That's really hard to work with, but we have got some code here, and if you've been following along in the video, you've there's some really great stuff to look at here and to learn from, as far as how to work with other things and also how to use these functions, because we did create a new function just for our oscillator here. Okay. Well, we've gotten our smooth RSI. That's probably good enough for now. Let's take a moment to find, let's take a moment to look for the code we need to plot these lines and fill in between it. And this has been a while since I've done it, so I'm going to look that up shortly here. Okay. Go to the reference manual here. Let's find our line. H line. That's what I thought it was. Excellent. Okay. Let's go down where we were plotting and let's plot some lines here. So now we are going to do a horizontal line. I cannot type right now. And we are going to have the value be at 80 for oversold. All right. Or overbought, excuse me. The title we're going to have as bought. Let's do color white. We'll try to make it look somewhat like the built-in RSI. And we'll do a line style. That does not work. They must have changed that recently. I bet you that is a line style dot. It's not. Am I typing something wrong here? Just go with this for now. It's not changing the color on there, which usually indicates that we've done it correctly. So we'll see. And line width, we'll set that equal to 1. Alright, so let's try this out and see if it'll plot our upper line. No, it would not. Dotted. Of course, that is not a valid option anymore. This is probably something to do with us using version 4, and the documentation that they have available may not be updated for that. So let's just take that out. We don't necessarily need a dotted line, honestly. By default, I think it'll probably do just a regular. No, it did the dashed or dotted line by default. That's good. It's actually what we want. So let's go and let's do our oversold line. Set that down at 20. Let's capitalize this stuff. Take a look at that now, and then we're going to do a fill between the lines, and you'll get a really good idea where things were. I have to set these equal to a variable here. So this would be overbought, and we'll call this one oversold. So now we're going to have to fill between the two of those. And I'll put the lower value first. You can see that they got filled between. I would imagine we could change the fill color by default. Let's look at that in their documentation. Yeah, that's the third option here. And then let's actually I want to fill a couple of other things. So that fill can be, let's call that orange. Watch this. So we're going to show it that we want to buy when things are oversold potentially. So let's do 0 and oversold here, and let's make this one green because this is potentially where we would want to buy. And then let's do another one from 100 to the overbought, and let's make that one red because that's potentially when we would want to sell. Doesn't like the colors. H line, H line. Oh, but the documentation says that should work. Okay, it might not like that we put in those numbers specifically. So let's actually plot a line on those. Max. And I really don't want these to be showing up on the chart, but we'll do it anyway. Let's see if a line with a 0 will work. And let's comment these out so that we can test that build to see what that max line is going to look like. Yeah, looks like it's actually going to show up there, even though it's got a line with a 0. So that's kind of unfortunate. Is there a way to set the visibility on these things? Let's take a look. It doesn't appear to be available in the documentation, so we'll just continue on. Having that line up there is completely fine. We'll just know that that is the actual max. No big deal. Let's actually color that one red. Put this one green. Let's do those orange, so it'll match our kind of color pattern we're working with here. Then we can remove our comments so that we can do this, and we'll just change this to min and this to max, and let's set this one to min. That's going to be at 0. Title is min, color green, line with 0. Let's check this out, see if this turns out all right. So I'm going to close our original RSI so we can take a better look at this one. And I'm going to move it over so we can get a really good look. All right, so you're getting kind of an idea here with this smoothed RSI, which is our yellow line, that when it leaves the orange area and it enters the oversold area, that might be a good opportunity based on RSI strategies that are out there, that it might be a good time to sell. And what you're really trying to avoid are the times when the RSI goes oversold here. So let's look at the price here. If we just sold when RSI went oversold on our indicator, then price would have continued to have went up, and we would have been out of profit on a short. So if you would have waited until the smooth RSI was oversold, you would have had a better entry on a short here. And let's go back and look at likewise here. You get a really good idea here of why it's pretty important. Now this was kind of out of the ordinary with the extended amount of time oversold. You can see when it came back up, normally that probably would have indicated a good time to buy, and of course it always isn't, but you'll see that RSI continued to stay low. That's because the red candles continued on and price continued to lower. So it's always something you can change and keep your eye on. I think this area was definitely a unique moment in Bitcoin history with respects to RSI. And you can even see here when RSI peaked out there, that wasn't even the best time to sell. If you kept an eye on your smoothed RSI and you sold when it was further along, or you waited for a divergence there, you would have had a better chance to sell at the peak, at the all-time highs. So there's obviously a lot of work here that we can do to improve this, clearly, because during a bull market, it's going to be hard. Your RSI is going to go over here. Yeah, it's really hard. We might even want to slow it down even more. Let's take a look and let's slow it down a lot. So this is a 14 period here. It's going to take a lot to get your RSI oversold on a 14 period smoothing. It really is. And let's see, where was that at? Up here. Yeah, that was about right. Slow it down even more. And since this is a smoothing, it doesn't have to be the same as, it doesn't have to be equal to or less than the actual RSI source. It can be slower. Let's take a look at 17 here. It looks like it timed that one pretty well. Zoom in. Okay, so it only went oversold on the smoothing once, and it was right back down to the neutral territory. That would have been a perfect opportunity with these settings. Here, maybe not so much. RSI barely got oversold. And here, kind of had to wait for it to leave to get an opportunity. But, you know, like I was saying, this is a bear market, so it's hard to say. And then again at the peak, you might have had a better chance to get a really good short in there. You'll notice there's not a lot of great times to buy when the RSI is low, because historically, it just doesn't get that low. Let's continue to go back. We have not had the smooth moving average into the oversold territory yet. So let's change it to BLX and take a look at how this would work there. Oh, yeah, look at this. It did it right here. It would have told you to buy here. So definitely not always the best indicator. But what you can do, and what I typically do with my trading, is if I wait and my indicators are telling me it's a good spot to buy, and the price continues to go down, then it's likely creating a divergence and it's going to bounce later. So what I should do is I should just average in. That's why when I usually buy into something, I usually don't buy in a lot. And now this isn't trading advice. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but that's what I like to do. Is I actually like to start with a normal size buy for me, but I usually plan to average in. And if I were to average in, as I knew this would most likely form a divergence here, because we were already incredibly oversold, it would have been a great time to catch this little rise here. So something in mind. All right, now let's go back on BLX chart and let's try to find something that's actually oversold here. Oh wow, yeah. As I said, the one stretch of being oversold here in our recent bear market was absolutely unheard of, being that low for that long, especially. So averaging in down through here wasn't a bad idea. It just wasn't. Historically, that had never really happened like that before. Yeah. So going back through Bitcoin's history, it really doesn't hit over here, but having this smooth RSI can help over here. Let's take a look at some like stocks or something and see how it would compare over there. Let's look at Apple. Let's look at their daily chart. Oh my goodness. And it almost got up there. Yeah. I mean, they've They've done really great. They don't get oversold too much either. I usually don't play stocks. I just wanted to see how it would look over there. I guess this is probably because there's not nearly as much volatility. Okay, here you go. Back in April of 2012. Looks like we were oversold for an extended time on the RSI. And if you averaged into a sell when it was over, you would have ended up in some profit eventually. But this is just one of many indicators. You definitely shouldn't just use one indicator to determine when you're going to sell. But I like looking at this smooth line to give me an idea of when something's been oversold for an extended period of time. And it's a good example to show you all how to plot and use your different colors and all of these other things. So I am going to actually publish this one very soon. Let's go back. I think I'm going to finish the video by preparing it to be published. So let's go back to Bitcoin. Let's go back to the 5-minute chart here. It's continuing to do very nice. You can see it's just now hitting oversold on the regular RSI. Okay. Let me actually set these to the default values. It's 14 and 17. An SMA. Let's change this to the RSI. So we're going to leave the code to say MA1, I believe. Yes, we're going to leave that to say that. And MA2 is just going to be renamed as smooth. Or should I say smoothed? Excellent. That should be good. That's good. That's fine. Need to change the title of our plots here. Save that. Excellent. Also need to turn off a few of our settings. We don't need resolution input. We don't need the input. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this line. And then we're just going to set it manually. It doesn't need to be an input. Our source doesn't need to exist because we're using the MA1, which is the RSI. And our resolution is current. We shouldn't have a resolution for this one because it should use the same resolution as the RSI. Whether or not it's visible, that's completely fine to stay. The type, yes, that's completely fine as well. Okay. So we've made some more improvements here. MA2 resolution, where is it looking for this? Yeah, we don't need this at all. This security related stuff, that is just for the different resolutions, and we don't need that at all. Not on the smoothed. See, now if we say we're looking at the 5-minute chart here, let's change this to where we're looking at the 1 day. All right, so the reason it looks like this and the reason it looks flat is because we're on a 1-day chart. The changes don't happen very quick over the course of a day when you're looking at a 5-minute chart. Let's zoom out, and now you can get kind of an idea that it changes every day. the RSI based on that resolution. So if you're trading like during the middle of the day and you see that the daily is already oversold, maybe it's a good opportunity to buy some dips during the day because there's probably going to be a lot of volatility if it's already oversold. Just some thoughts. Let's change this back to the current resolution. And you'll, of course, have to play around with these values and see what's relevant. But, I like this indicator. It's pretty neat. It's not super useful yet from what I can tell, but, I mean, looks like we're getting oversold here. If it were to peak up really high, and you'll get this a lot. Bitcoin usually doesn't go super oversold or overbought. But let's take a look at something else, like a low cap coin. Check out Nano. I like to pick on Nano sometimes. Let's see. They really don't have a lot. And maybe this is something that's better on a 1 minute chart. No, Nano goes mostly sideways, not enough volume. Let's look at Ripple. And if this one doesn't have it, I'd be shocked. Yeah, okay. You can see they go overbought, 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 oversold. So it happens quite a bit there on the 1 minute chart. Let's take a look at the 5 minute. Yeah, they get overbought on the 5 minutes as well. Let's see, we're on the 5 minute chart. Let's switch back to the 1 minute and let's change our RSI to use the 5 minute chart. You can see if we were looking at the 5 minute chart, we were oversold here. And if you're looking and using other indicators and you're looking at this different time frame, this higher level time frame, you might have been able to get a quick scalp in using other indicators. So this is a very, very flexible smooth RSI. And I am going to be publishing this now. So if you have been following along, if you've watched this video so far today and find this very interesting, please like and follow the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more. I know this was a pretty long stream. I really wanted to make some content because I had to restart the channel after a long absence. So this is, I think, a very good video to show you how you can kind of create an indicator from scratch by borrowing some of my already existing code. Always check out my TradingView profile, BigBitsIO. See where we're at now, 1200. Yeah, doing pretty good. I'm posting all the scripts here as they get finished. Okay, so you'll see this smooth RSI is going to show up shortly here, and some of the ideas that I've had here. And I actually want to check on this one with the Ethereum Bitcoin, because I'm really excited about that one. Oh no, it's not doing too good on the last few minutes. But I forget I'm on the 1 minute chart. So let's go back to the daily here. Okay, yeah, it's doing just fine on the daily. That 100-day moving average was coming through here. So it's fine. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.